So something I hear a lot about Anakin Skywalker from prequel haters, if it isn't something about how whiny and ungrateful he is about how he's an idiot who is easily swayed by the manipulative Palpatine. And you get the point. Unlike a lot of prequel criticisms, however, there is an interesting point brought up, but it is something that is explainable if you watch the movies closely, which a lot of prequel haters don't tend to do. At first, it's kinda laughable that people think they would know any better than Anakin in his position. The same people who couldn't figure out why the Trade Federation is blockading Naboo also believe that they could easily see through Palpatine's deception, as if Anakin is supposed to completely see through the lies of someone who groomed him for over a decade, and who he saw as the father he never had. I mean, he would commonly talk to Palpatine about stuff he never dared talk to Obi-Wan about. Yeah, how dare he not realize that Palpatine was lying to him this whole time? I mean, I imagine learning that your father figure was using you would be incredibly tough to swallow. We see Palpatine, before he reveals his Sith identity to Anakin, completely manipulate his feelings, encouraging him where the Jedi did not, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people don't seem to realize that Anakin was fucking ready to execute Palpatine upon learning that he was a Sith Lord. We know, however, that he restrained himself and decided to turn Palps over to the Jedi Council. He tells Mace Windu about Palpatine, but Windu tells him to stay at the temple and to not interfere, further showing his distrust towards Anakin, seen throughout the prequel trilogy. However, the thought that Anakin's only chance at saving Padme from death may be lost with Palpatine, and the film brilliantly shows this by recounting Palpatine's words. I see in a lot of parodies that mock Revenge of the Sith that they seem to think that Palpatine should have no idea about Padme, and that he was obviously the one who gave Anakin those visions. Or, if he was the Sith Lord, he probably sensed Anakin's conflict. That's a possibility. Again, people just ignore that Anakin was incredibly close with Palpatine. However, this is where a notable point comes out about Palpatine. Some prequel haters seem to cite the fact that Anakin shouldn't believe Palpatine because he was behind the Clone Wars and whatnot. He was actually behind all the suffering, and any times Padme's life was threatened, Palpatine had some involvement in it. For example, they might cite when Jango Fett was hired to take out Padme, so as far as Anakin knows, Palpatine tried to indirectly kill him and his loved ones at best. Seems like bad writing on the surface level, but there's one factor that people don't consider, and that's the dark side. You see, throughout the trilogy, Anakin is shown as desiring power. While this is usually in a context of saving the ones he loves from dying, there is an implication that he truly desired the power only for himself deep down. That's what the dark side does. It makes you forget about everyone else, and makes you only look inwards, towards yourself. So why Anakin joined Palpatine, despite being behind the Clone Wars and all the suffering that followed, is simple. He, deep down, desired the power Palpatine could offer him. And we even see when he meets up with Padme that he's delusional and lost track of the goal of saving her, as he offers Padme the chance to overthrow Palpatine, indicating that past that point, Anakin didn't actually care about Palpatine. He, too, had forgotten how he saw Palpatine as a father figure. It's also a similar dilemma to why Count Dooku joined Palpatine, despite the fact that Palpatine had trained and sent out the one who killed Dooku's apprentice Qui-Gon Jinn. It can be suggested that Dooku went in expecting to learn everything from Palpatine before destroying him, but due to basking in the dark side, he forgot the reason he joined Palpatine to begin with, and eventually didn't care all that much about Qui-Gon anymore. There's actually a lot of stories in Star Wars like this. In Tales of the Jedi, for example, Ulic Qel-Droma loses his master Arca Jeth to the Krath, and he prepares to go on a mission to infiltrate the Krath and destroy them from within, and it's noted how risky it is that he will lose his way, but he does it anyways. Eventually, when he's captured, he's endlessly tortured by the Krath, and Alimo Keto seduces him, and he comes to forget the reason he infiltrated the Krath to begin with. His brother Kay and Nomi Sunrider do actually try to remind him about his mission, but after basking in the dark side too long, Ulic dismisses them and tells them to leave immediately, One event leads to another, and Ulick joins forces with the fallen Jedi Exar Kun, in which they proceed to join forces and wage war against the Republic. You can see that eventually, that this all leads to something completely unrelated to Arca Jeth's death. One could equally point out why he would allow himself to be seduced by one of the people who killed his master to begin with, and the answer is simple. The dark side corrupts absolutely, and makes you bask in the power, and think inwards and only about yourself. Just like Anakin Skywalker, he forgot about what he was trying to do. That's what the dark side does. So to sum it up, this gotcha argument, while an indication of bad writing on the surface, is actually a huge part of the universe. Unless you want to call Ulick Qel-Droma, Count Dooku, Revan, Malak, and Quinlan Vos idiots too, for becoming the very thing they swore to destroy, but I guess with the exception of Count Dooku, no one would dare call any of these characters idiots. So why Anakin? I think maybe it comes down to not looking into things hard enough. People just stop at something they think is poor writing and never critically think about it and why it's poor writing. There are so many Star Wars stories like this, with heavy implications at that. So this isn't just exclusive to Anakin. In fact, calling it poor writing would make every other case I just described bad writing as well. Calling it bad writing would make every other case I just described bad writing as well, and that's just absurd. So to summarize my argument, it comes from a lack of understanding of not just Anakin's arc, but also what the dark side is, and how it relates to Anakin's fall and whatnot. So nice try. But by saying this, you're basically calling a lot of Turn to the Dark Side stories crap as well. And if you disagree with my examples, I'd love to hear what the difference is, like with Ulick Qel-Droma. Also, one final observation. If you still find my explanation unsatisfactory, note that your criticism would completely devoid Luke Skywalker's arc in the original trilogy of all tension. The reason why is because using your own logic, Luke obviously knows that the Emperor is behind all the suffering, including anything that happened to him, his friends, his father, his adopted parents, etc. So obviously there's no way he'd join the Emperor, otherwise he'd be an idiot. Now Luke made the right choice in the end, but what I'm pointing out is where exactly is the tension if, just like Anakin, he knows that Palpatine is behind everything that went wrong. Nobody makes this criticism about Return of the Jedi, that Luke obviously wasn't going to fall to the dark side because that would be stupid and would be poor writing. Because anyone who understands the story would know that Luke would be blinded by power and eventually come to think inwards and only about himself. So yeah, nice try. But I thought long and hard about what I like and what I don't when it comes to Star Wars. With that being said, I'm JJ Plagiarisms, and until next time, what are stories by mystery boxes?
Under the mountain, a golden fountain, were you praying at the light?